Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. We're talking Die Hard. Hit it. It was 1988. Doppler radar was invented. Steffi Graf was the first and only Golden Slam winner. Alan Moore gave us The Killing Joke. And Bruce Willis became a huge star in an action movie set at Christmas. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me are two very special guests. You'll know them as the hosts of the Tubular 30-something podcast, John and Pat. Guys, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. I was excited when you reached out to us and were like, "Hey, do you guys want to come on the show? We'd love to have you on the show sometime." And I'm thinking, yeah, come on the podcast, get together, have a few laughs.
I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, this is great being here. And I mean, talking about this movie of all other, this could talk days, weeks, and months and years about this film. So
this one's
very
good.
Cool.
It's a classic. I mean, for me, I didn't grow up watching it at Christmas time, so I don't quite equate it with Christmas as a Christmas movie. I mean, it's more like an action movie set at Christmas to me. But I over the years, I mean, more and more, there's a push for it to be like the Christmas movie, the action Christmas movie, which is really cool. I kind of think.
Right.
And so it's funny because it's like this one, Lethal Weapon, and I actually just released a couple of episodes. One of them was Night of the Comet, which is also set at Christmas, and then Invasion USA is another one. But there's like a whole genre of like action movies set at Christmas that I kind of really starting to get into as well. Cobra, I always forget Cobra is another one.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, my daughter has finally reached the point where, because she doesn't like scary movies. She's only about 10 years old. She doesn't like any scary movies, but and I was so happy about this. Just the other day, she came and she's like, "Dad, I think I'm ready for Gremlins."
Nice.
Right. You are ready. Dad is ready for Gremlins. So well, and that's why I was excited when you said, yeah, maybe, and we were talking, you and I were kind of back and forth on coming on the podcast.
On some ideas. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were like, yeah, what about Die Hard? Well, my son, who just turned 13 this last year, at Christmas time, I was like, you know what? I think he's old enough. I think we're ready for Die Hard. So he and I ended up watching Die Hard at Christmas time this year, and he liked it so much. And it was late at night when we started it. We waited until kind of everybody else went to bed, and we stayed up, and it was really late. I want to say we finished it around midnight or so. And he just looks at me and goes, "Dad, how many more movies are there in the series?"
That's a good sign.
Like, of good ones, there's maybe two more.
Maybe two more, yeah.
And he's like, "Can we start the second one?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, we don't have anywhere to be tomorrow. Let's go ahead and start." So we actually started up the second. We didn't finish it, but we started up the second one. And so that was kind of our pattern, was as soon as we finished, because then a few days later, when we finally finished the second one, he's like, "Is the third one good?" Yeah, it is, buddy.
I like the third one. I do like the third one. I like it better than the second one, honestly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's funny because, that you mentioned, you're 10 and 13. My kids are 8 and 4 and 2. And I remember in 1984 going to see Ghostbusters and Gremlins when those came out at the theater, and I was 4 years old, but that was like, that's what you do. If your parents are going to go see it, you go see it. No big deal.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I wouldn't show my 4-year-old Gremlins because he's going to have like crazy nightmares or something. But back in the day, it was like, yeah, whatever. I don't know what changed, but something did. I don't know.
Yeah. Jerry, you bring up such a great point there that and I mean, I guess it's maybe parents of all generations have said this, but it's like, man, how did we get by with that? Like, cause I wouldn't even dream of, and I mean, and you're exactly right. But yeah, we watch these things, and there's been a whole host of movies that, have come out that are just like, yeah, I don't think you're old enough I don't think I'm going to be playing that for you,
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's like I've mentioned several times at our show, like that I saw movies way too young because of one of my uncles. He tended to babysit me a lot.
Yeah.
And even though I was really little at the time, I don't think I've watched it since then. I still remember bits and pieces of Porky's. I saw Porky's. I mean, I was probably like 2 or 3 years old when I first saw Porky's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the same thing, like, I know my parents, like Ghostbusters, Gremlins, some of the same ones you're mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They must have just looked at it and been like, oh, there's Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He's cute. Or Little Gremlins. They're cute. Furry. It's a kid's movie. Yeah.
Well, and I know with Gremlins specifically, the marketing was like geared towards children. And then a lot of parents were like pretty upset when it turned out that it wasn't really a kid's movie.
Yeah.
When you get to the story of what happened to her dad in the chimney.
Oh. That's another classic Christmas time. No. But this movie I remember seeing when it came out, and again, like I had no business being there, but man, this movie ruled. I mean, it's just, it's one of those where it's like it really transformed, I think, the action genre, because it went from like the hulking, Schwarzenegger, Stallone kind of archetype to more of the everyman kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of saw that transition as well into like then the Steven Seagals and the Van Dammes after that. But it's funny how one movie can really kind of revamp everything about a certain genre.
Yeah.
We kind of talked, Pat, we actually just had an episode not too long ago on our show where we were talking about Indiana Jones. We actually went back and did Raiders of the Lost Ark, and we were kind of talking about that. We're like, Indy is not a great hero. Like
he really, if you think about it, he has like no bearing on the outcome of that movie. Like he could actually just take him out, and I mean their faces would still melt and nothing would happen. So
and we were talking about that. It's like, and John McClane is kind of the same way. It's like Indiana Jones, and you know what? I was listening to one of your recent episodes on Lethal Weapon.
Oh yeah.
You did with was it with Tim from the 80s flick Flashback?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah. And you guys were talking about it, and you were talking about Riggs, and it was like, okay, yeah, like Indiana Jones, John McClane, Martin Riggs. A good portion of what they do is just dumb luck. Like they're not great heroes. A lot of times they just kind of stumble into something, and John McClane's a perfect example of a guy who's, I mean, he complains half the time. He's constantly making mistakes. It's all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, this is a very different, this is not hulking Arnold Schwarzenegger in the jungle, wrestling with a predator. This is a very, very different kind of hero. And yeah, it's just kind of, you almost look at it and be like, well, maybe I could do that too.
Yeah. And I think that's why it works.
I can't be Arnold, but I kind of feel like I could do some of that stuff.
But, now I kind of want to see like Bruce Willis as John McClane, like just covered in mud trying to, go up against a predator.
Yeah, that's right.
Come to the jungle, have a few laughs.
That's exactly right.
That phrase can be used in any situation.
It can be used anywhere. It's so good.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. So John McTiernan, the director, really didn't want to make a terrorist movie. He kind of thought it was like too, I don't know, bad, too evil, whatever. And so he had him, change the script to Thieves. And I think I like it better that he did. I think that was like the smart choice. At least for me, as a kid, I didn't quite get terrorists. I didn't really know what a terrorist was. But I mean, you always played cops and robbers. There was all sorts of that. I mean, I think there was that Cops TV show, with Long Arm and Bulletproof and Buttons.
Yes.
You remember those guys? Yeah,
I do. Yeah. I do.
So
BP Vest was the chief, right?
Yep,
Wasn't
yep.
that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yep,
Love that
Baldwin
show.
P. Vest, Bulletproof. But yeah, I mean, so I knew what a thief was, and so it made more sense. It made more sense when all this stuff started happening that, okay, they want the money. I get it.
Yeah.
So I think that was actually quite a smart move on his part.
Yeah. Well, it's such a, if I remember right, that's such a cool reveal when all of a sudden, like after all of this, and it plays to the humor, and I'm going to call it humor, but it plays to the humor when, Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber is sitting there talking about and you're going to free my my fellow fighters, and he's going down. And then what was it like the last one? He's like
Dawn or something.
Yeah, and he's like, and the one guy's like, what? And he's just like, I read about them, and not Forbes, it was Time or something.
Time, yeah,
and, I read about him in Time. Anyways, and he's going through, and then all of a sudden you realize it's bank robbers, and then I don't want, because they are murderers. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to get away from it. But even that, this movie, the way they treat it, it's fun and light and action oriented and all that.
Mm-hmm.
When they reveal it, suddenly it's just like, oh, they're not like really bad guys. They're bad guys, but they're kind of that roguish, like scoundrel more, and it adds, it injects a little bit of humor and makes everything a little bit more fun the way they do that.
And I'm glad you said that, because Alan Rickman is like so compelling, such a great actor that you almost kind of want to root for him a little bit. At least me, there are times where I'm watching it like, God, he's so suave, he's so smooth and smart, and I really want this guy to win, and he's going up, of course, against John McClane, the hero, and you're like, well, okay, I guess the hero's got to win, but God, I would like to see that alternate reality version where, like, Hans Gruber actually pulls off this heist and just sitting on the beach, earning 20% or whatever it is that he says.
Well, even that name, Hans Gruber, you can just throw that out there and people will be like, oh, I know Hans Gruber, like it's just become household,
Mm-hmm.
It's, and it's funny that we're talking about it, and I don't, again, I don't want to preempt if you've got the show structured in a certain way or whatnot. But if I understand correctly, and I'm saying John McClane, Bruce Willis, and Alan Rickman, they weren't like big box office superstar and all that. And so it's kind of funny because something that we'll talk about, or sometimes you see in the articles, oh, who's going to be the next Batman? Oh, he can't be Batman. Or I remember who's going to be James Bond? Oh, he's blonde. James Bond's not blonde. Or and we always ask those questions and try to figure out who would be the best next whatever. And it's like, you can't judge someone based on their other roles. And this movie's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Rickman and Bruce Willis, it's iconic. They are larger than life. They are, they're the archetypal good guy and bad guy and everything. But before this, they didn't play those roles at all, which makes it that much more incredible. And I always think back to this movie whenever there's a discussion about, oh, well, who should play the next? Or I don't know if that person, well, until you see it, like, look what this came up with.
Mm-hmm.
It's just watching them on screen, it never gets old. It never gets old.
I completely agree. Yeah. Alan Rickman, I think he was like big in like Broadway stuff like that, theater, of course. And this was like his first film. He'd moved to Hollywood, and like within that week he got this role, and he almost passed because he didn't want to be typecast, and he kind of didn't want to do action films. And of course his agents like convinced him to do it. And I kind of feel bad because he ended up he did kind of become typecast as like the villain. Although it did work out for him, in the end. So I guess you can't really complain.
Right.
But same thing. Yeah. Bruce Willis had done Moonlighting. He had done, what was that one terrible Blind Date. He had done that before. And that was really it. But they weren't like big hits. Moonlighting was kind of decent, it was getting popular, but it's not like he was a huge box office draw. In fact, most people kind of were turned off by it, so much so that they had to change the marketing to remove him from the posters.
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
It's hilarious. Like, who does that? But like it worked. So you can't blame them, I guess, for doing market research and altering their marketing strategy. But at the same time, it's like, wow, to pay this guy as much money as they did to take this chance. That took like some major cojones, and thank goodness it paid off. He built a huge career out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one of the things you mentioned too about, how Hans Gruber is, he's a bad guy, but he's also kind of charming.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'll kind of say that on our show. It's like, this character is kind of a jerk, or, I don't like anything else about this hero, but they have a certain charm to him, and he does. And that's really different. if you look at a lot of your 80s, especially if you go with like the 80s villain, that's the foreign villain, he's got the accent and he's either typically Russian or German or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're never, as far as I can remember, they're never really charming. Like, I wouldn't call them charming. They might be educated like he is, and they might be sophisticated, but they don't really come across as charming. And even though he's a terrible person and doing terrible things, there are moments where he comes across as, oh, you know what? I could sit down and have a cup of coffee with this guy. Oh no, he just unloaded a whole bunch of bullets into the. No, I don't. I take that back. No coffee with him. But you have little moments of.
You think about like when Holly, goes up to him and is like, "Hey, we have a pregnant lady. Can she please be moved in to go sit on this couch here?" And he's like, "No, but I'll have a couch brought out to her." I mean, same thing. It's like, wow, okay, this guy, maybe he doesn't care about them, but at least he, on some level, he has some sort of empathy. And then same thing. She's like, unless you want to mess, I suggest you start taking us to the bathrooms. And so he's like, yeah, okay, that's a good point.
But that scene that you're talking about, exactly when he says, I'll have a couch brought out. When she says that, we have a pregnant lady, his reaction is, oh, and she's like, don't worry, she's not she's not due anytime soon. So, I mean, it adds a little bit of humanity to that. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm trying to, again, I was on the younger side when all these movies came out. So a lot of this I wasn't processing on this level.
Right.
But the major bad guys in the action movies, how much did they really, at that point, humanize them to that level? Right. I mean, it's sort of like, now it's kind of commonplace where, like Marvel movies, they inject humor in that make all the characters seem, oh man, that's, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're having a conversation that is like, oh man, that's pretty funny. That sounds like a bunch of dudes hanging out. Or, we humanize and we want to either for good or for worse, like depending on what the critics say and all that, but we want to have that where it's like, oh, I can relate to that. That's the kind of conversation that my buddies and I have over the water cooler. You have a little bit of that human element with Hans Gruber. And I'm trying to think, I don't know if any other action movies at this time really did that with the main bad guy. Like I'm thinking of all the Bond villains. They were all just like
one-dimensional,
mustache twirling. They've got these exotic locations and all that. And it's like, you never hear them kibitzing about, men's fashion or, I don't know, that scene that you talked about and the way he reacted, it made him seem human,
Yeah. Well, like John, you brought up the Lethal Weapon. I mean, you think about Lethal Weapon, same thing. Mr. Joshua, he's just a straight up villain. There's no humanity to Mr. Joshua. It's and you're right. You think about what's his name, Richard. I can't remember his name. With the burn scars, he's like classic villain. I can't think of the actor's name right now. Anyway, in Invasion USA, same thing. He's just the bad guy. You think about Missing in Action, it's always just the bad guys. I mean, all these like classic, these classic films, classic action films, same thing. They're like you said, Pat. I mean, it's just there's no humanity to them. And nowadays you get Thanos, in Infinity War, where you're like, okay, I kind of see where this guy's coming from, and maybe you don't agree with what he's going for, but you kind of at least understand a little bit where he's coming from. And so it's that element that Alan Rickman really brought. And I think it's because he had done all that stage work. And I mean, he had just played, what's his name, the Vicomte in Dangerous Liaisons. And so he had that kind of, where I'm bad, I'm kind of devilish, but at the same time, I'm maybe starting to feel something for this girl, and you kind of get that sense of, yeah, I'm evil. I just want the money, but I'm not really evil. I don't want to kill, pregnant women. The owner of a multi-million-dollar corporation that won't give me codes. Well, that's different, but
yeah.
Were you thinking was it Richard Lynch?
Richard Lynch. Yes, that's his name. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I the name just completely slipped, but he plays bad guys in like almost every TV show. He was the villain. Same thing. A ton of those canon films, he was villains. And I mean, it's always just, he's evil. That's it. And we get that a lot. And that's why I really appreciate Alan Rickman's performance in here.
Oh yeah. And what was it? Someone had a quote like about actors, like, I don't know, they were doing, it was like a racing film or something like that, or a martial arts film or whatever. And it's just like, this actor was quoted as saying, like, I'm not a real martial artist. I just have to look really good while doing it was all the idea of looking good at doing something. That's the actor's job as opposed to really being good at it. And I'm not disparaging actors. Like this actor was just making a kind of a not self-deprecation, but he was being humble about, when, okay, I'm a fighter pilot in this movie and I'm a this and that. And that's kind of the thing is when you can just sit there and watch the screen, even before the dialogue and the action starts, when it's just like, man, these guys just look cool on screen. And like we said, Bruce Willis has that everyman look, like, some explosion and he's bouncing off walls and jumping through glass, and and it's always just kind of that you can walk it off. Like back in the 80s, you can just kind of walk it off and you're good.
Yep.
And he looks really good doing it. And it's the same with Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman looks good. Like, watch him walk out of the truck when they pull in the beginning. And as he walks into the elevator, and I think the camera does kind of a thing where, I don't know what the exact term is, but it kind of pans around him, where he walks toward the camera and then around this. He looks so cool walking in the midst of his whole gang. Like, you could just sit there and it's just like, wow, he's attained that level of I'm awesome. He hasn't even said a word of dialogue yet. He just looks great. And it's fun to watch, literally it's fun to watch these guys on screen.
Well, and it's what you just said, it's fun to watch these guys on screen. The one thing I always think is done so well in this movie is the hero and the villain rarely ever see each other, like actually see each other. Mm-hmm. Almost the entire battle, if you want to call it that, between the two of them is a battle of wits and a battle of words over a walkie-talkie. And the way that they structure that, and the way that they still are able to, have and both of them being very kind of quippy and funny. And it just, that's part of what, even if you didn't like action movies, first of all, I don't know what's wrong with you, but even if you didn't like action movies, you're still hooked by this movie. I could just sit there and listen to the two of them talk on the radio back and forth. Mm-hmm. They should start a podcast. It should be the John McClane, Hans Gruber podcast. I don't know what they want to call it. But welcome to the party. There we go.
There you go. I
welcome
like
to
that.
The party, pal. Yeah. The Welcome to the Party podcast. And, but no, just their whole,
I listen to the heck out of that.
Yeah. Just their whole back and forth. I want to say it's the very first time John starts talking to him. I pulled it up here so I make sure I get it right. Where they turn the radio on. And Hans is like, I thought I told all of you, radio silence. And John's like, no, I'm very sorry, Hans, didn't get that message. Maybe you should have put it on a bulletin board. I figure since I waxed Tony and Marco and his friend here, I figured you and Carl and Franco might be a little lonely. So I wanted to give you a call. And you can tell, him as the cop is running down. Okay, well, I got Tony, I got Marco, he's running down like the number of guys, and he's trying to get him to let something slip. And then I love how Hans comes right back with it. He's like, that's very kind of you. I assume you are a mysterious party crasher. You're most troublesome for a security guard. Sorry, Hans, wrong guess. Would you like to go Double Jeopardy where the scores could really change? Just that whole, that's just one example of their whole back and forth on the walkie-talkies. And that's how your hero and villains square off for most of the movie. And I just love it.
Yeah. It's really great until we get to that point where eventually they do meet, and we'll talk about it in a bit. But when they finally do meet face to face, and Alan Rickman, Hans Gruber puts on that fake, kind of Texas accent, Clay.
Clay.
That's right. Such a great name. He gets to that point where something's a little off, and of course, John McClane being the super cop, and there's a deleted scene that they cut that explains how he's able to know. But being that cop, he doesn't trust him at all, and he's like, okay, something's a little bit off about this guy, and he gives him the gun, whatever. But that interaction is kind of, to me, I always found it fascinating because it's the two main characters, but one of them's pretending to be someone else, and the other guy, he kind of has like this vulnerability, like, yeah, I'll bring you along. I'll protect you, kind of a thing, not realizing, that it's his main adversary. And so I always found that back and forth between them amazing, especially after having heard, Hans doing his whole German bit. And then Bruce Willis comes back with the, that's some party trick you have, or, with the accent kind of a thing. And so that was always like one of my favorite parts because, like you said, they never really meet until this one scene, and it's done so superbly. What's his name, Jan Dubont, the cinematographer, he liked to use a lot of handheld cameras and really get in there, and what he called he preferred to emphasize the drama rather than making it look good. And so you really kind of get that, and then sometimes we get like steam kind of preventing the shot from being like just a beautiful shot, stuff like that, just all these random shots. But it really adds to like, okay, this is kind of a confined space. They're stuck in this building. The claustrophobia is kind of set in, at least for me, the viewer, and then you have this back and forth between them and the vulnerability, and it really is just breathtaking the way that they filmed it, and it adds so much to that scene in general, and then their whole back and forth, in particular.
Yeah. It's funny. I'd really never considered it until you mentioned that, but you're right. Like the way if I understood correctly, tell me if I got it wrong, but like you said, the way they've got the building is kind of like is a character, right? There's the construction area, there's the party area, there's the parking lot area. And you're right. The front entryway, right down to the guy like taking cover behind the candy thing and reaching down and grabbing the piece of candy or whatever.
It's totally what I would have done.
It's a character, but not in like the slap it over your head kind of way that Gremlins 2 building is.
No, exactly. But you're right. The way they film it, and when we get done here tonight, I'm going to have to go back and like rewatch this movie. I did it in preparation, and I'm going to have to do it as like cool down after the show. But yeah, and take a look at that scene, and just like you said, just really look at that scene and notice all those things, like you said, like the smoke, the steam, the tight space, and yeah, cool. Yeah. That's a cool point.
So I guess if we wanted to nutshell the film, essentially a New York cop goes to LA to make up with his wife and gets caught in a terrorist scheme to rob Nakatomi Plaza of bearer bonds. That's like the nutshell version of this movie. But it's much more than that, because we have like all these subplots that Jeb Stewart and then what's his name, Steven D'Souza added in. And D'Souza, I mean, he's like one of those guys that his resume is it starts off like amazing, and towards the end of his career just really trickles down to awfulness.
When you start off with like when you've got Commando in there, I mean, that's we introduced, that was one of our very first episodes early on.
I love Commando
in our show, and Pat had never seen it before, and so we still joke about that now. Is that because we would try not to talk to each other before we'd record our episodes, so we watched Commando, and we all get on together, and I will never forget. Like Pat was like, "Okay, guys, who was this a first time viewing for?" And Pat's like, "Me." And I was like, "Okay, Pat, what did you think?" "It was awesome. It was the best thing ever. I love it. The music and the fighting and then this and then that." And you couldn't control Pat because he was so excited. So yeah, when you look at D'Souza and you're like, all right, well, you got Commando, you got Running Man, and then where are you going to go from there?
That's true. Yeah, Street Fighter, I guess. I don't know. Well, maybe I'll cut that part out. This is actually based on a novel. It's the sequel to the Detective, that novel by Roderick Thorpe that Frank Sinatra actually starred in. And I've never seen The Detective, although I hear it's actually pretty good. He wanted to do a sequel. It took him about 20 years before he finally actually finished writing the novel. And by that time, Frank Sinatra was like, "No, I'm passing on this. I'm not going to do it," because he was like 70 at that point, so it made sense. But they turned it into this. What's his name? Jeb Stewart. He's the one that did the initial draft, and I guess his version wasn't quite as funny, and I know D'Souza actually added a little bit more of the humor and kind of lightened things up and fleshed out some of the characters and subplots. But this was another one where they were just like adding and rewriting as they were going, and there's always a danger when you do that, of it just being like tonally just all over the place and a mess of a movie. But I think it actually really works in this case, because of Bruce Willis's schedule with moonlighting, and they had to expand certain scenes, and because of they didn't really have an ending, and then they kind of redid their ending, so then they had to re-edit some of the other things and take out certain scenes. And so it's one of those where it's like, this was just kind of one of those perfect situations where everything right was done.
It's like one of those lightning in a bottle moments, because you had just the right combination of people. A movie that we talked about recently, just probably a couple months ago, was Soap Dish, and I had never seen Soap Dish before.
Oh yeah.
And thought it was hilarious, but that was one of those where, like, I remember kind of doing our background work on that, and it was like, yeah, half the time they were improvising stuff, and like they would go, and I think one of the writers, it was something like they would go and they would write 60 pages of what they had kind of improv back and forth, and then they would kind of cut that down to 30 or 20 pages that ended up being part of the actual script. And everybody involved, all the different actors involved in that, were like, this is a great thing to work on. Half the time we didn't even know what we were going to be doing tomorrow, but it was so much fun to work on because they valued our input, and we just we bounced ideas off each other. So it's kind of one of those, like, when you get that perfect blend of whether it's the writers, the producers, the director, it just seems like this is one of those that you've got the humor, you've got the action, you've got and like you said, sometimes they're just kind of writing it on the fly. They're writing it as they go. You've got that skeleton, but you've got that just great combination of people that knows how to do that and knows how to blend this all perfectly together. I always try to think of, with this movie, are there very many other movies where I could say the mixture of drama and action and comedy are as seamless as they are in this movie? And I can't think of too many others.
No, definitely not. You're right. They did everything right, and it just kind of worked. And they weren't sure it was going to. I mean, I know it was a limited release, and then it did well enough that they decided, okay, well, let's go ahead and do a wide release. And then from there, it like snowballed, excuse skyball. That doesn't mean anything.
That's an unpublished James Bond novel.
Skyball. I believe
it.
Yeah. Or it's a bad roller skating movie. But
there it is.
Because for with a budget of about 25 to 30 million, I mean, it made like about 140 million, which isn't bad at all. I mean,
no.
I'd take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of little things in this that they, like I said, they had to rewrite. One of the things that was constant was John McClane and his wife. So that was in Jeb Stuart's initial script, because in the novel, it's actually about his daughter. And he's like a 60-year-old guy, and his daughter, who's kind of addicted to drugs, is at this party. And it's a real bummer because in the end, she actually dies. She falls off the building as well, along with Gruber, who I think his name is Anton Gruber in the book. But Hans Gruber does sound better. He couldn't quite crack it, and they didn't want someone older. They wanted someone younger. So they changed it to his wife. And I know Jeb Stuart kind of got that idea because he had just had a fight with his wife. And of course, all this you can also, if you see the movies it made us as well on Netflix, that's a fascinating look into it as well, and all that stuff's out there. But I think it really plays not just for us as kids, but especially as adults, because for us that have significant others, I mean, there's always that okay, I said the wrong thing, I messed it up, is she going to take me back, or that kind of feel to it. And so again, it like you mentioned earlier, it really humanizes John McClane, and you want to be able to empathize with that hero, because he's the guy that you're supposed to root for. And so it's one of those that he goes to this place in LA. He's going to this party that he really doesn't want to be at. He doesn't even want to be really in LA, but he wants to kind of make up with his wife. And of course, shenanigans ensue.
Yeah. And what I love, a great scene. And I heard that he and the actress that played his wife, if I remember right, they spent, I don't know, I'm going to say hours. That might be a little bit euphemistic there, but no, not euphemistic. What is it? I might be speaking in hyperbole to say, oh, they spent hours doing this. But I heard that fight scene they had before she stomped back into the party, and he was like, God, great job, John, and all that they just sat there and went back and forth, just kind of improvising like a fight. Right. And they just kind of got everything out there and really got comfortable fighting with each other. I'm not an actor, so I really can't describe the process, but right. that's why that's the one of the reasons I've heard is that scene comes across so genuine, as like a husband and wife having a fight, is because they sat there and just made sure that they were comfortable and that they were able to do that. And like you said, humanizing him. I mean, that's great. The anticipation, he's going to go up, he's going to try and make out with his wife and all that. And he picks a fight with her. And then as soon as she walks out, it's just like, nice job, John. Way to go. Because he's always talking to himself.
He is,
but I mean, I just love that, yeah, like, I mean, and, not that I'm like some action star that's going to save a building. But I've been in that situation. I've walked in and like, okay, high end, and then what do? I go pick a fight with my wife. Yeah, nice job, Pat. Great, wonderful, real well done.
I love kind of along those lines. I love that one scene where she because then that kind of shows you the tension in their relationship. Is you get that scene later on where somebody says something about I think it's Carl comes through and he like smashes a whole bunch of stuff and he's, wow, that guy's really angry. and Holly, all she goes is she just goes, he's still alive.
Yeah.
Like, what? Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
Which is, I mean, this dialogue, a lot of it's real snappy, and I like that. Mm-hmm. It's clever because it's things that people would say, but said it in, of course, just the perfect way. If I were saying that, I wouldn't have said, only John, could have done that, drive someone that crazy. I probably would have been like, because he's a jerk or something. She says it in such a way that it's perfect. And Bonnie Bedelia is she just nails this. She's strong, she's powerful, independent, which I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you can tell that she also cares. She's empathetic because she cares for her coworkers. She's essentially in charge now after they kill the boss, which again, I really like that part where she goes up to him and he's like, what idiot put you in charge? You did. She's like, you did.
Yeah.
That's classic.
Yeah. I think that point that you just made, that she's not just a damsel in distress, but she's a strong. Honestly, I think that's what makes this movie at 35 years old or somewhere. It's more than 30 years old, obviously, mm-hmm. But that's what I think. One of the things that, you can pop this movie in and watch it now and enjoy it. And it, one of the questions we talk about on our show is, does this movie still hold up? And, mm-hmm. The constant debate is, okay, well, we're looking at stuff that's 30 years old or more, are we judging it fairly? Should we judge it? Are we do we put the 2021 lens on the camera when we take a look, and all that kind of discussion. And I think what you just said right there, I think helps this movie still seem fresh. You open it up and it's like, this is just as good as when I put it away. And I last watched it, whether I last watched it 30 some years ago or whether I watched it just 30 some minutes ago. It's still fresh. Very much so. Yeah. I completely agree with everything you said. It definitely holds up. I mean, everything. Well, maybe not the cocaine use at the party, but I mean, it was the 80s, right? Cocaine, but right. I mean, everything about it from the husband and wife. I mean, just that basic interaction, that whole relationship. I mean, most adults can connect with that. And so already right there, you kind of built something. And then of course a heist. I mean, everybody loves a good heist movie. I mean, you look at like Ocean's 11, what is it, The Italian Job, some of those, Den of Thieves recently. I mean, that one was another a pretty good one. So, I mean, that aspect already holds up. And then you have that relationship with like John McClane and, Officer Powell. Yes. Reginald VelJohnson there. And so then you have that budding relationship, that friendship that develops. And so, everybody kind of has that guy that you can connect with, even though you don't really know him, but at the same time you have stuff in common with, and it's like, oh, I get where you're coming from. I know you're trying to help. Let's do this together, kind of a thing. And so, that's another brilliant aspect that I think that really worked there was not only casting Reginald VelJohnson, but kind of fleshing that relationship out as well, where he's like, hey, Roy, because, he introduces himself as Roy Rogers or whatever, and he's telling him like, hey, you got this, don't do anything stupid, but at the same time, help's on the way. And I mean, just that whole thing, hey, you got kids, and, I mean, it really, really works, because that's kind of the same kind of talk I have with some of the guys at work that I don't really know that well, but at the same, we can commiserate about certain aspects of our lives, right. And so I think it's again, and I hate to say this because I've said it over and over again, but I mean, everything that really was done in the best possible way. And I can't imagine now anybody else except Reginald VelJohnson playing that role.
And I know that they had even considered, like some big names, big time actors, like Gene Hackman was one of them that they had even considered going in there. But I don't think it would have had the same oomph. It was Reginald Vell Johnson and Bruce Willis were not well known. And I think, again, it's like when you have that sense of unknown, you can kind of sculpt these actors into whatever you want them to be. Where if it was Gene Hackman, everybody knows it's Gene Hackman. I mean, he's Gene Hackman, he's got that level of acting that you just know it's going to be brilliant. But at the same time, it's like there's no sense of like mystery, I think, about him. No mystique.
Right.
Well, and it's like with Bruce Willis and Reginald Vell Johnson with their characters, it's like a buddy cop movie with buddy cops that are never in the same place at the same time. You wouldn't get that with Gene Hackman. Like, I don't picture Gene Hackman in a buddy cop movie.
No.
Not that he couldn't do it, but just, from all the other movies I've ever seen of him, I don't picture Gene Hackman as a buddy cop in a buddy cop movie.
Maybe Lex Luthor, but
yeah. It's really, each actor really kind of became the character. Like I have a hard time, like as you said, I have a hard time imagining someone else playing the role. I mean, and now we usually talk about that with, hey, can you imagine anyone else playing Indiana Jones? Can you imagine anyone else being Luke Skywalker? Can you imagine anyone else being Iron Man, Tony Stark? Can you? And for this movie, I really can't imagine anyone else. Not only Hans Gruber and John McClane, but Al Powell, or was Al Powell, right?
I think
Officer
so,
Powell, yeah. Being his wife, being like any of those characters, those actors and actresses, like they made those characters. They really brought their A game, or the character really worked for them, or however, like John, you said before, it was lightning in a bottle. It just really, really worked. And I think anyone else in there would have thrown off the balance of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I even like Alexander Goodenough as one of the henchmen. I mean, again, he's a ballet dancer. It's not like you expect him to be like some sort of hired thief or hired thug, But he pulls it off. He's got that physicality about him, and he's just big, strong dude. And you're like, okay, well, I don't want to piss that guy off.
Yeah.
And like so many of these guys, they all get their chance to have their moment. Like whether it's a funny line or whether, so even all of your, ancillary characters, they still get a moment. Like I think of even like the deputy police chief. Don't mess with the bull, you'll get the horns.
Yeah.
And his one line, because you kind of hate him because he's kind of a weasel, and he's well, as John said, he's not part of the solution, he's part of the problem. But you get that his line is one of my favorite lines and one of the funniest lines, because I love a good little bit of dark humor. And one of his lines is my favorite in the movie. We're going to need some more FBI guys, I guess.
Yeah.
It's that little
need a bigger boat.
Right. It's just that little tinge of the dark humor, the ho, ho, ho. Now I have a machine gun, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I love how it's not just John McClane that gets that, and not just, we talked about Hans Gruber even gets some of the humor too, to kind of humanize and make him more charming. But it's a lot of the other characters. Like you get a lot of the other little side characters here. They get a chance to kind of put their own little mark on the humor of the movie, and it makes it so much fun. It makes every one of these other little characters, the two Johnsons, the two FBI guys, it makes all of these characters just so much fun to watch.
Which, and I think that's closer to real life. I mean, everybody's got a little bit of funny in them, and especially in stressful situations, we all kind of, make a joke here and there. And I'm really bad about it, to where I annoy my wife. She's like, get serious. We're talking about this. It's like, well, okay, but so it's always in those kind of situations where we kind of let some of that out a little bit, just to relieve some tension. So I appreciated that they spread that humor love, around. Because like you said, it really makes it more palatable, I suppose, rather than just, this dire situation here.
Right.
So of course there's a few things that are like classic about this film. So we have, where he's got his shoes off and he Yeah, he has to drag his bare feet against that glass that's shot out from under him. We have the C4 throwing down the elevator shaft. That's another classic. And we could go on and on about all the different, the different stunts that went wrong and things like that. But really, what I love is some of the little details here and there. So like when he goes in the limo, Argyle picks him up and he's like, don't you have any Christmas music? And he listened to Christmas in Hollis and he's like, this is Christmas music, little things like that really stand out to me. Or like when Ellis, the sleazy, cocaine guy, and he's like, Hans, Booby, I mean, just like these little things that really make their characters, I think, just stand out and pop more, and right. It's kind of along that same lines that we were talking about with the humor. And to me, that like really just makes this movie so much better. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that guys in the cast, right? I mean, that yeah, and then I always confuse, is it William Atherton played the news? Mm-hmm. Okay, yep. and I always always confuse him. I'm with, and I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to look it up right now on IMDb, but was he the same guy that played, was he also in Ghostbusters? Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yes, it's true.
And what? And that's right. That's it. Yes.
Was he also in Ferris Bueller?
No, that's Jeffrey Jones.
Okay. See, I confuse those two. Those are two guys that I always mess up. Anyways, so you have William Atherton, and then is it Al Young plays? He's the guy with the ponytail, and he's like in all the.
He's the character henchman, like extraordinary. Yeah,
and he, you talk about looking cool, Mm-hmm. And then even the two FBI guys, I've seen those guys in a whole bunch of different films. In fact, I want to say the one FBI guy was the main bad guy in License to Kill.
Yeah, Robert Davi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In any event, I'm going off, but it's like you said, they each can add something, but they packed it with that guys. You know what I'm saying? It's like an NFL team that does great in the draft and then does a whole bunch of trades for all these other known quantities and just like packs their team with playmakers all over the place. And so whether it's a camera shot or it's a line that needs to be delivered or whatever, you have people that can play to their strengths throughout the film. And it's just like everywhere you look, you're being entertained. I mean, everyone's got their A game. So,
yeah, I agree. And, it's funny because, thinking about how John McClane interacts with all these guys, these henchmen, and, he takes them out one by one and stuff like that. He actually is quite resourceful for just a cop, a regular, I don't know if he's a detective or if he's just a beat cop at this point, but I mean, and, he mentions that he can spot a fake ID, stuff like that. But he's really inventive. So like when he's trying to get their attention and nothing's working, so he like throws the body out the window, of course, when he wants to mess with the other guys and kind of get in their heads. And so he has the now I have a machine gun, ho, 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 there's so many little things that are like, man, how does this guy, like, where does he come up with it? First of all, and like, how does he actually get it done? Right. Because that was something that always like boggled my mind as a kid when I watching this film. Was like, God, this guy, he's just so cool. He knows how to do it all. But like how? I mean, I guess the streets of New York kind of like toughened him up or something.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like, it kind of goes along, I think, almost with that everyman thing where, like, let's go back to Indiana Jones. Okay, so Indiana Jones is always like, well, how are you going to do this? I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. Kind of like that's his mentality.
Right.
But he can like take a punch and keep on moving. And he's also educated, right? So you kind of, that everyman thing is like, oh, you know what? If I spend every day like reading books on ancient antiquities, and if I do that, like I too will be able to speak multiple languages and interpret Egyptian hieroglyphics and read, like I'll be able to figure this out. And that's the same thing like with John McClane. It's almost like the MacGyver thing, right? Just be resourceful and you'll be able to figure your way out of it. Like John McClane can take a punch, he can run through glass, he can dive through windows and at some point just kind of walk it off. And it's sort of like, Oh yeah, okay. Well, he knows how to handle high explosives. All right, yeah, just wrap it with a computer and dump it down the elevator shaft. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, you gotta rappel down a wall. Yeah, use the strap on the gun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, all of those things. You tell yourself, yeah, like you just get training. You'll be able to do that too. Everybody can do that. It's not like not to say there's anything wrong with it, but it's not like I can fly, or I've got like laser vision, or I've got mutant healing factor and all this kind, and I'm not disparaging any of that.
Yeah. I get
But
that.
I think that's like an element of this everyman thing where it's like, yeah, you need to be educated, you need to be street smart, and you can assemble those things into whatever you need to get out of whatever situation you're in.
No, Pat, and years ago, I would have been right along there with you. It'd be like, yeah, with all that training, I could do exactly what John McClane does, but seeing him like walk through glass.
Yeah.
Years ago, the first time I stepped on a Lego piece, my kids carpet.
Yeah.
No, that proved to me that I could not be John McClane.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough one there.
Yeah. Well, it's that 19, and they make fun of it in Last Action Hero, right? Like, if I want to be careful with the whole spoiler thing, like our podcast, we're usually pretty spoiled things. So I want to be careful.
Yeah,
with your audience.
I don't care. You can spoil whatever.
But I mean, that was the whole joke in that movie, is that, they went back and forth between the real world and not. And it was just like, in the real world, oh my gosh, this is a life-threatening wound. And I think they even dropped the line, like, but in the movie world, it's a flesh wound, just walk it off kind of thing. And that's what makes it great, is no matter what kind of action movie in this time period you're watching, yeah, you run through glass and yeah, there's blood, but just wrap it with some handkerchiefs and keep going. You fall off a motorcycle. Yeah, you just roll down the road and you're scuffed up and, oh God, take a couple of limping steps and you're good to go, and
it's like Captain America said, you get killed, walk it off.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because it reminds me of that other movie, The Other Guys, with Will Ferrell, and when the building explodes and they're like, how do they just walk away from this?
Yeah.
They're like splayed out on the floor.
Yes.
Yeah, that's that same thing. And he pulls out the glass and you're just like, oh man, I mean, that scene still like makes me squirm every time.
Oh yeah.
He's able to do it. And I don't know if I would be able to keep going after that. I think I might be like, all right, they can, as long as they don't kill anybody, they can take whatever they want,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not being a professional bank robber, are bearer bonds like a thing? Because I'm thinking back, there's a lot of movies that make a point to go after the bearer bonds. And it seems like this movie, wasn't it Beverly Hills Cop? Wasn't bearer bonds was the thing? And then I think even in Heat, like one of the things they were going after, one of the things, because there was a multitude, was the bearer bonds. And so I think, I wonder if maybe at this time, in the late 80s, early 90s, it was bearer bonds. There was a real run on them, or.
Well, I supposedly, and again, I didn't research bearer bonds because I'm not, but my understanding is that they're untraceable.
All right.
So you could just you could possess them and do whatever you need with them, and they can't really, trace it back to you. So I think that's why.
There you go.
Yeah.
I very quickly jumped on Investopedia.
Oh,
and,
there we go.
Found the entry for bearer bonds that says bearer bonds are virtually extinct in the U.S. and most other countries, as the lack of registration made them ideal for use in money laundering, tax evasion, and any number of other underhanded transactions.
There you go.
Right.
Yep.
There's your answer.
Untraceable. Yep.
All right. Right.
So yeah, bearer bonds were a thing, but they're not so much anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we get at the very end, we get the big, the big helicopter thing. They're planning on, just faking their deaths and then escaping in the vans down below. John McClane kind of prevents that. He has the gun strapped, to his back, and then of course he kills Hans Gruber and he drops him off a building, which comes back in Die Hard 3 later on with his Hans's brother. I don't remember his first name. But actually, or Simon, right? It's Simon Gruber, I believe, like Simon says. Yeah. Anyway, I actually really like Die Hard 3. I think it's really cool. And what's his name? Samuel L. Jackson does a great job as Zeus. Mm-hmm. But this is like the gold standard for all of them, and none of them have ever come close to this level of awesome, I believe. Die Hard 5, I try not to speak of. Die Hard 4 was also pretty terrible. And yeah, 2 is okay. And when you compare it to 4 and 5.
Yeah, I still have not brought myself to watch the fifth one.
It's bad. I mean, it's bad. Yeah.
I wasn't, I mean, I love 1 and 3 and even 2. Like I really like 2.
Yeah.
But 1 and 3 are my absolute favorites. And I watched 4 and I was like, huh. Okay.
With Justin Long.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So then at that point, when 5 came out, I was like, yeah, I'll catch it at some point when it's free to check out at the library.
Don't watch it on like TBS. The commercials make it like unbearably long.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're gonna watch it, just like watch it straight through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just easier that way. Which is a shame. I hate to say that about a Die Hard film, man, because I love Die Hard. It's so good. Everything about it. I mean, we've been talking about the music. Michael Kamen, he like incorporates, the Ode to Joy, and all these things that he really didn't want to do, but John McTiernan was like, "Hey, it worked in Clockwork Orange," and he's like, "Okay, fine, I'll do it." And now it's like you can't imagine it without that that Beethoven when they're opening the vault and we finally hear it, and it's so great.
Yeah. And it swells, like the music swells, right? I mean, you get that, dun, 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 I mean, and even the camera is like an upshot, so it's like, it's like a kid opening a present on Christmas kind of thing. And they even, the opening of that, like, something's coming, like the way they harmonize that main theme of the Ode to Joy when they pan to the trucks driving in. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And which is also just a cool shot when you see the trucks coming in and like the car goes around to the front circle and then and somehow they split where the truck takes the down ramp, but the camera's running alongside of it. So it looks really slick, like watching them, if I'm describing it correctly, watch the truck kind of go down the ramp and everything. But the way they play that, it's like, ooh, something, something's happening. It's like a calm before the storm type deal going on. And something big is coming. And if you've already seen the movie, it's not like, well, I saw it once, I've got the big reveal. Okay. It's like, oh, I know what I'm in for. This is exciting, and it's really all achieved by the way they incorporate that theme. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, and I've never really been a huge Michael Kamen fan. I prefer like Jerry Goldsmith and of course John Williams. Everybody loves John Williams. Michael Kamen to me was always just kind of middle of the road, but I really love what he does here. So he like uses a theme and like he kind of takes it down a few notes. He like transposes it lower so that it's a little more ominous, not quite as bright. And then of course as he builds up, he gets into the full theme later on. But I think he did really well working in just the Christmas music, working in the Beethoven as well as his original material, and it's just one of those things where if anyone else had to score it, I don't know if it would have worked. And I love Jerry Goldsmith, but his style wouldn't have fit. I love John Williams, but his style wouldn't have fit. It would have been too bright. Because even when you think about John Williams, like I don't know, quote unquote darker stuff, like in Minority Report, it still has that typical Williams, Gustav Holst, Aaron Copland kind of feel. And so again, I don't know if it would have worked. And so Michael Kamen, I think, was a perfect choice, especially coming off, like Lethal Weapon, stuff like that. This is kind of like his genre, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I do kind of wonder, is this a Christmas movie to y'all? Like, do y'all consider it a Christmas movie?
Well, you have the right hosts from our podcast to answer that question, because if it was one of the other ones, you'd get a 20-minute argument to go along after this. But, but from the two of us, I don't want to speak for you, Pat, but the two of us, I think I'm going to say, yes, this is a Christmas movie. Just some of what you just mentioned, even you listen to the Michael Kamen music and there's the little jingle bells that are kind of mixed in with the score. I always think of this as a Christmas movie, and that's specifically why when my son and I I was like, you know what? I think you're old enough for Die Hard. We've had a couple of little milestones lately. We just showed him The Matrix the other day.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And he loved that one. But, when I said, you know what, I think you're ready for Die Hard, and we're going to watch it during winter break. So right around Christmas time, that's when we're going to watch it, because that's the appropriate time to watch this movie. Actually, any time is appropriate to watch it.
Yeah. Came out in July, but I guess Christmas in July might as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Pat?
You know what? It's funny. I agree with what you said at the top of the show, where, you didn't grow up thinking of it as a Christmas movie, but now it's just kind of fun to have it be a Christmas movie. Right. Yeah. And I think, yeah, you're right. Like some of our hosts would be decidedly anti that opinion. But it's fun. It's just a conversation starter. And it's one of those things that it's like, with everything else that we seem to want to argue about in this world that has real consequences, this is something that's fun to argue about, just to have the argument. Where it's just like, well, yeah, it's a Christmas movie. Of course it is. I mean, I even saw something where I think was it the director, he did this and Lethal Weapon and had this flow chart of why it was a Christmas movie. Like they used the movies that were, I don't know if you've seen this, and they had this like flow chart of, or not flow chart, but checklist of, Miracle on 34th Street, What a Wonderful World, and they listed all these Christmas movies and like, okay, well, it has a this and it has a this and it has a this. And then they go down the list with Die Hard and it's like, well, What a Wonderful World has that. Die Hard has it. What a Wonderful World has this. Die Hard has it 3 more times that, and so it's just, it's just fun to get into that sort of like rival, sports teams, what I'm saying? Like where we're at, it's like Bears versus Packers or Packers versus Vikings or, and I mean, it's just fun to argue about those things, so.
We made the connection one time in our podcast. We're like, this is already tied into another Christmas movie, Home Alone. We said Home Alone is basically Die Hard for kids.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's a Christmas movie. So I don't know. I don't know how many more connections you can make.
Right.
Yeah, a friend of mine says there's more Christmas in this than in Jingle Bells, like the song. Yeah. So, and he's right. There is. Okay, I was just curious. And then one more thing before we get into some of my favorite parts of the show. But what's your favorite scene?
Well, I'm not allowed to say everything from the credits to the end credits, right? I can't just say that 2 hour.
If you had to pick one particular scene, I'm just curious.
So okay.
Yeah.
For me, it's hard. It depends on what kind of a mood I'm in. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
John, what do you think? I'll defer to you.
I've I've already kind of used it as a little quote here a few times, but I think it's when he's crawling through the air ducts and he's just kind of, he's realizing like what kind of a mess he's got himself in. Mm-hmm. And it's just that whole, like you said, he's constantly talking to himself.
Yeah.
And, he's not a superhero. So he's like, oh God, how am I going to get through this? Like, oh yeah, hey, come out to the coast, get together, have a few laughs. I think there's that whole, that to me kind of sums up his character and sums up the movie.
Yeah.
And so iconic because, so many other movies and TV shows have paid tribute to the idea of crawling through the air ducts and, kind of mumbling to yourself or trying to figure out how you're going to get out of this situation. And so I probably have to narrow it down. I would probably say the same thing as Pat, like from time code 0001 to whatever the final, end credits is. But if I had to narrow it down, I'd say that one. That one kind of encapsulates the whole thing for me.
Yeah, I'd have to say like the one thing that really stands out, and it's kind of it's not really a scene, but it's more of a transition, is when Al Powell's sitting there on the walkie or the what do you call it, the CB, the radio,
the CB,
yeah, and he's sitting there talking, and they're like, yeah, something Nakatomi Plaza, check it out, and he turns and he looks, and what you see is it looks like the landing lights of the helipad at the top of the building, but then the camera pans up and you realize it's the muzzle blast from the firefight going on. Right. And I always thought that was a really cool transition, that it's just like calm and I'll check it out and everything seems normal. But you have this firefight going on with automatic weapons. But the transition is I always thought that was kind of a cool thing. It's not really a scene. I gave you a transition, but still all that. That's the thing that really sticks out of my mind is, I want to rewind that. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. So
see, for me, it's always when Hans and Ellis are talking, and Ellis is like, "I can get you the guy that's bothering you," and that back and forth where he is like, "Hey, I got this. I deal with these high pressure situations all the time." I mean that, and Hans is just like nonplussed. He's like, "Okay, well, you said you're going to do this, and if you don't get me this guy, I'm going to kill you." And I mean, it's just. the tension there. You can feel Ellis is like kind of nervous, but he's like, hey, like, okay, come on, John, come on. This guy's serious here. And of course he can't do it because there's all these other hostages and everything he's got to worry about. But I love that scene because it's like, it shows the helplessness that John has, but at the same time, it shows like Hans's ruthlessness. And I mean, just everything about it, I think that's the one that gets me all the time. But I do have to ask, guys, what would you say would be your happiest memory of this movie?
For me, I'd say I've got maybe a couple. Like I've already said, my son and I watching this at Christmas this last year. And that whole thing of him, as soon as we finish the movie, he wants to start the second one. Part of that is, and I remember for the most part, growing up, we watched all kinds of different movies, and some of them probably I was younger than I should have been.
Right.
We were watching them, but I think we also had some copies that were taped off of TV because I don't think it had all the language in it. The other day when I was kind of excited, I was like, hey, you know what? It's a Saturday. We're looking for a movie to watch with the family. The kids are going to love Blues Brothers. And then I realizing, no, wait a minute. The copy I had, nope, never mind. Can't watch that one with kids.
Yep.
But I do remember, I remember kind of one of the first times, and I can't remember specifically what movie it was, but I just remember that feeling of being about 13, 14 years old and watching an R-rated movie with my dad for the first time. And it was probably an action movie. It was probably something like this. I don't think it was Die Hard, but it was probably something like this. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm an adult now. Like I got to watch an R-rated movie.
Nice.
Kind of cool. And so I kind of like, watching that with my son, that was kind of a fun piece. Not specific to this movie, but kind of specific to the Die Hard series. There was a time, for my job, I don't tend to travel a whole lot. I don't tend to, stay in hotels and go places like that. But was one time where I was going to a conference and I was staying in a hotel for, 3 or 4 days. And I like to sneak away. I love to go to the movie theater. Like that's my stress reliever. I don't mind going by myself. I absolutely love going to see movies. Nice. One of my favorite memories before COVID hit was going to the movie theater and seeing 1917. That was a lot of fun. But anyway, I was going to this conference. I was staying in a hotel for a few days, and there was a little movie theater that was kind of at this little shopping mall over there. And I was like, I'm going to sneak away. I'm going to go see a movie. And I looked to see what movies were playing, and I was like, nah, nothing looks too appealing. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I'm like, I'll go walk around Target for a little bit. So I walked around Target for a little bit, and I happened to find that there was a little thing of microwave popcorn sitting right next to the Die Hard 4 movie set, because that's all there was at the time. And I was like, well, I can get some popcorn, and I can get 4 Die Hard movies for about $12, take it back to the hotel room, and just have a marathon. That's exactly what I did that night.
Nice.
This is relaxing. This is kind of fun. This is so. That was my my 4 Die Hard movies were. It got a little less relaxing as the 4th one went on, but I was doing pretty well.
Well, yeah, we'll stop speaking about Justin Long now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love what you said, John, about watching it with someone for the first time, right? It's always like I just have memories of watching it with my wife and saying, you've never seen Die Hard? How can you've never okay, we got to fix that. Like Braveheart. Well, that's something we'll have to remedy. But honestly, I think my happiest memory of this is just finding complete strangers. Jerry, up until now, I'm podcasting for an hour here. I don't know if we're officially strangers anymore.
I don't think so.
But having the same experiences and thoughts and reactions and realize, oh, wow, man, like, how cool is that? Like, I'm not in a bubble where I'm the only person that love Die Hard. Like, everyone can laugh about the same things. Everyone thinks Hans Gruber is just a great villain. Everyone can say, we're going to need some more FBI guys. And, you can throw that out there and people, or send in the car. You can just throw little quotes out there. John, like you did at the top of the show, like come to the coast. It'll be great. And it's just the fact that, like somewhere else could be around the world. someone's having the same feeling and the same experience and all that I did with this movie and still do.
Mhm.
And so like that's kind of like one of those, the happiest memory. It's ongoing. Like every time you meet someone that, oh, you like Die Hard, yeah, what about, that's just a cool feeling, especially when it's and again, not to impugn any of the movies that are out there now, but when you get a movie that's 30 years, and that's habit from the show 30. I mean, what is it now? Is this 30?
So
it was
came out in
86. 88. Okay.
So yeah, 33.
So you get a movie that's 33 years old and people still remember it and are just as excited by it as you. And I think that's my favorite memory, is just kind of sharing that with
Nice.
up until before that, complete strangers.
Yeah, I dig it. I dig it a lot. For me, I actually have a very distinct memory of going to, so we used to have this old video store called Movie Land Video, and they had these like magazine type things with all the new releases that were coming out.
Cool.
And I remember when Die Hard was coming out, it was like January of '89. And so I remember it was like, it's coming out soon, and so we were all excited. And so we actually rented it when it came out. And my dad, of course, he wanted to watch it first to make sure that it was okay. And so he watched it. And then the next night, we all watched it. He was like, okay, look, there's some bad language in here. Just don't say it. Don't repeat it. Okay. And we watched it, and it was like just blew my mind. It was the perfect blend of like action and comedy that we've been talking about. And so I remember watching it with my dad. It was like one of those things, and it's similar to what you mentioned, John. It's just, I remember seeing that in that magazine and then taking it home, and it was like the greatest thing ever. Of course, I also rented like, I think, it might have been Bionic Commando. I don't remember. It was one of those Nintendo games. But I remember watching Die Hard, and it was like so cool. So
yeah.
But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little segment I like to call "Gag Me with the Spoon." So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the movie. It doesn't have to be something we don't like, just something we don't like as much as the rest of the movie. And then I'll leave it up to the listeners, and they'll vote to see who had the best worst impression. And the winner gets a totally rad Christmas sticker, unless I win, in which case I get nothing. But I've done this now for 70 something episodes, and I still haven't won. So I think you're probably pretty safe. As the guests, I'll let y'all go first, just kind of set up the scene for us, and we'll go from there. So whoever would like to go first, go ahead.
John, I'm going to defer to you. I struggled with this one. I'm going to defer to you.
This one was actually kind of easy for me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There is a character that always drives me nuts in this movie. And this character to me, because I love those, like I've already said, I love those little dark comedy moments. I love that, like we said, it humanizes the different characters.
Right.
But there's one character in particular to me that seems more cartoonish than everybody else. And it's Theo the hacker. And the one line every time that I cringe a little bit every time is, "Oh my God, the quarterback is toast."
That was good.
All right.
That was good. Yeah. And
all right.
scene.
It's right. It's only a few seconds, like that line and that whole thing, and it's kind of funny, but it's also in a little ways, it's kind of like,
yeah,
it's almost like too over the top. Like some of his stuff is just a little bit too. See, I like other scenes where he's kind of arguing a little bit back and forth with Hans.
Right.
I'm like, he's one of the only henchmen that really kind of argues with
pushes
Hans.
back. Yeah.
Kind of pushes back a little bit. And that stuff I like, but then there's other moments where, he's a little bit too over the top, almost a little bit too goofy.
I dig it. Pat?
Pat, I stalled for you as long as I could, buddy.
Sorry, I'm sorry, and like I said, I don't want to mess up your show and all this kind of stuff.
Man.
I struggle with like, and these, John can vouch for this. It's like if we have to vote on like something, or like, hey, you got to pick something you don't like. It's like, I kind of liked it all. And then if I don't like the movie, it's like, pick something you enjoyed. I didn't enjoy any of it, So I'm working. So I hope this is keeping with the spirit of the question. I couldn't find anything that I found cringeworthy or like that I thought it was badly done. But the one thing I picked was one of my favorite scenes by the hero, our hero, John McClane, when he's talking to his wife, and it's cringeworthy because like, I can find myself in conversations or arguments with my wife, like doing the same thing, like just kind of the bullheaded, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's cringeworthy, not because it was bad or it was badly delivered, but that whole scene where, Holly's talking to him and he's like, and what's with Holly Gennaro, and she says, well, they don't like, this company, the way they look at it, they don't like women when they're married. They prefer women not married. And he looks at her, you are married. You're married to me. And it's just that bullheaded, just like not hearing what she has to say. And when he says that line, first of all, like I can't even say anything near how Bruce Willis can deliver a line, but I hear that and I always cringe because it's just like, oh, I've done that and talked to my wife, not exactly that same kind of setup, but just in that way that I'm not listening. And I just have that edge in my voice. You are married, Holly, you're married to me, and it's just like, oh man. And then the very next thing is when he's just like, nice job, John. Way to go. Like I cringe because it's like, yeah, I've been there where it's just like, oh God bless it. I just, words got ahead of my thoughts. So I'm sorry, because that wasn't in keeping. Hopefully,
no, that's okay. That's perfect, man. That's perfect. Yeah,
that's exactly the scene that every time that comes up, I'm just like, oh man, that's not good. You'll
find that Pat is like one of the nicest guys in the entire world, to the point where when you ask him a question, Pat, tell us something negative about this movie. It's like, oh guys, I just all right. Well, I tried to search for something and I think the camera operator, like one of the camera operators, he had kind of a funny looking last name. But you know what? Hey, that's last name. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. It's gonna be so Pat is like the nicest person in the world that even if he can't find something, he'll be like, yeah, I found this part. I didn't like it, but hey, that's just me. I did. So that's
each to their own.
Pat struggles to find something negative.
I get it. I also had a hard time finding a line or something that I didn't like. So in the end, I went with something that I think, because Bruce Willis has said that the reason people like Die Hard was because of the the Jersey guy kind of comedy in there, which he's not wrong, but I think it's because of that and how he took that and ran with it that we got Hudson Hawk. Which I like Hudson Hawk, but I mean, it could have been better. Right. I'm not gonna lie. So I chose when he's crawling through the vents and he says, now I know what a TV dinner feels like. That kind of.
That's right.
I could see him taking that and be like, oh, that's perfect. All right, let's go make this other movie. This passion project here. It's like, oh, okay, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
But again, I like the line. It's just the circumstances surrounding the line I don't like. But I'm going to leave it up to you listeners now, and just don't forget to vote, and the winner will get a sticker. So hopefully, maybe this time I'll win, but I don't see it happening. So if you want to pity me and so I can win, that's cool too. But no. Anyway, but guys, it's been a lot of fun talking with you, and G.I. Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. What would you say is the other half?
My mom is going to be so proud for what I'm about to say. Her family, like turn of the century and even probably further back than that, there was a particular type of business that they used to own and kind of in the Southwest Missouri area, I think a little bit in Tennessee, maybe a little bit Oklahoma too. They owned a shoe store. So I'm going to say that the other half of the battle is always having a quality pair of shoes nearby.
Right.
That's kind of close to mine.
Right.
It's good. All right.
That's funny because what I was thinking, I won't exactly steal yours, John, but I was going down along the same lines, and that might be universal for this movie.
I
think the other half of the battle is just, and I'll borrow the Boy Scout motto there, be prepared. And, obviously the example you had was a case where John wasn't, totally prepared to go running out into battle there. But in the same token, I mean, that guy had a pretty quick reaction time from when all of a sudden the guns started fighting, and he was, to borrow the line from Heat, at the drop of the hat, these guys were rock and roll. I mean, and all of a sudden
nice.
He's out there and like, ready to fight the bad guys and get on the, call in support and everything like that. And, he's, his mind is always going, and you hear that from all his thinking out loud and talking to himself. So I guess that would, you see it, what happens when you are, and he's totally prepared and just ready to go into action. And then when he's not so prepared and, his feet pay the price. So I think that idea of being prepared just for whatever.
Right on. Well, those are, I was going to say they're better than mine, but they're actually really close to mine. So, if knowing's half the battle, the other half is not taking your shoes off after a flight, just in case you have to step on glass.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So I think we all we're pretty much in the same boat there.
Yeah.
It makes sense. That seemed like it hurt. And
if these movies have taught us anything, you got to be careful around feet.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of the conflict of Pulp Fiction wouldn't have happened if they wouldn't have touched Hollis's feet, and it just, there's a lot of foot stuff going on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking at you, Deep Blue Sea.
And even as kids, when we'd watch this, if we watch this around kids or around when we were kids, if you watch it, at that time, thankfully, I didn't have a life where getting into a firefight was something I had to worry about with bullets flying. But stepping on something sharp like a Lego or a nail or a piece of glass, that's something that you can, the glass bowl broke in the kitchen and you're vacuuming, cleaning and all that. And then a day later, what happens? You got a hunk of glass stuck in your foot as a kid or whatever. Yeah. That is something that, it sticks with you. And so it's funny that, kind of back to that other point, man, we just met each other tonight. It's 33 years old and we're all kind of around the same thing. Ow, the glass in the foot.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's fun.
Yeah. This, it's a great movie. And, we didn't really go over the plot too much, but that's because everybody knows this one. This is one that, I just wanted to talk pure nostalgia. So I'm glad I got to talk with y'all about it. But, tell me about your show. What do you want to plug?
Yeah. So we've got, I'll plug I'll plug the other podcast I do with a couple other guys first, and then we'll do 30 podcasts and Pat can chime in on some of his favorites we've done lately. But I actually got two podcasts because I, for some reason, felt like there wasn't enough free time, for me to suck up with other things. So the other one, actually, we just started it, is it's called Podcast Full of Kryptonite. And I've started it with a couple of guys who also do a podcast called the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. And,
nice.
Theirs is a great show too, but we started this one because we kind of we were texting back and forth, and we all realized just how much we have been enjoying the Superman and Lois show that's on the CW. And so we kind of started it with that, and we're like, hey, you want to do a show on Superman and Lois? Sure. And then it kind of branched from there, and we're like, you want to do more Superman stuff? So we've kind of got the plan for that one to do Superman and Lois as long as that's on. We also did, I think, a 3-parter on Zack Snyder's Justice League after that one came out. And I think I intimidated the guys because after a few days of deciding to do this Superman podcast, I sent them a spreadsheet and I said, hey guys, if we want to do every Superman TV show, like live action TV show that's ever been made, we could keep doing this for about 12 years. You guys up for that? And I don't know how you measure dead silence in a text message thread, but I got dead silence for a while. I think I might have scared him a little bit, but for as long as we're having fun, we may just keep going with it and cover all the Superman shows. I'm a bit of a Superman nerd, so that was
nice.
That's no struggle for me to talk Superman for a really long time. But yeah, our main podcast, we started the 30-something movie podcast back in 2015. We were, most of us were the original hosts, and most of us are still there that are the originals. But we were all teachers kind of working in the same school, and we'd sit around and talk movies in the teacher's lounge. And, we'd kind of had the idea to do a podcast and just never pulled the trigger on it. And so eventually we're like, why don't we just record these conversations that we're having? Cause we were kind of, it was 2015. We started talking in 2014 and 2015. And I think the conversation started with, is 1984 like the greatest year for movies that's ever existed? And we started just, listing off all the different movies, and that kind of ended up being how we got started. And so we decided the premise of the show that we could keep going forever if we wanted to was most of us at the time were in our 30s, so we said, hey, let's just look back at movies when they hit their 30th anniversary. So starting in 2015, we did 84 and 85, and then after that, 2016 was 86, 2017 87. So we did this one back in 2018. I think it was somewhere in our 200s in our episodes. Pat, and you can talk about some of the favorites we've done recently, but I know for Pat, the podcast peaked in January of 2019 when we finally covered Batman.
Oh, yeah.
That was the funny story behind that is when we first started in 2015, one of our earliest episodes, I was asking each of the guys, was like, guys, what movie are you looking forward to? And I'm expecting them to tell me something like Back to the Future or Teen Wolf or something that was coming up within the next months, something soon. And Pat goes, Batman. Like, wait, Pat, that's 4 years from now. I know, Batman. All right, that's cool. So when 2019 hit, we did I think we did Batman like the first week of January.
Yeah, it was much anticipated. I'd been excited to talk about that movie for 4 years. So
like, Pat has delayed gratification for 4 years. So let's go ahead and just get this thing done.
Get it done. Yeah. It's funny you bring that up, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but so of course Batman Returns, it takes place at Christmas, and even though I'm a podcast about the 80s, I really go from like 77 to 93. I give like a 3-year grace period. There's like transitional years. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna talk. I have about like, I don't know, maybe about 9 guys that want to like join for the Batman episode where we talk about Batman Returns, because I told them like, well, we're not just going to talk about Batman Returns, we have to talk Batman 89 first. So now there's like this group of like 9 or 10 guys that all want to join on like this huge just free for all. So I might do some sort of, I don't know, Royal Rumble style
fun
podcast. I don't know, but if you guys are up for it, I'll have you back on for that.
You just said the magic words. You said Batman, and that's Pat will come running.
Yeah, what? Batman 89? Woo!
But I'm sorry. So yeah, what were some of your favorite episodes from the show you've done?
I was going to say that you were talking Batman, and I was going to pull a line from that I think not a lot of people remember the line, but somehow I always come back and I use it in my own head. Like, how many people you want to have on your Batman podcast? 6 is good.
Yeah.
Nobody ever does that, but I reuse that one the same way we reuse the 220, 221, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
But yeah, what have we, like, Pat, we've recently, even just looking at this year, so we moved away from the 80s and we moved into the 90s. So we're in 91 this year. We got to do my favorite. So I since Pat did his first thing in January back in 2019, we did Rocketeer was our first episode.
Oh, wow.
And
Joe Johnston.
That is one of my absolute favorite movies. I've got right around the corner here from where I'm recording down in the basement. I've got shelves of, I've got a replica of the helmet. Nice. When I drag my family to the comic book conventions, we've gone dressed up before. My wife has been either gracious enough or crazy enough to come with me dressed as Jenny from the Rocketeer. And I've got a whole bunch of like other stuff I've collected from that. So we did that one first up this year. And we've had a lot of other fun ones this year. Father of the Bride we've done this year. Adam's
that's been great.
My Girl, Thelma and Louise are a bunch of the other ones we've done lately. But yeah, Pat, what like some of your favorites we've done this year?
Well, it's funny because you listing all the ones that are the favorites. I mean, like Rocketeer is awesome, and there's like ones that I just couldn't wait to review with everyone. And like then it's fun,
like Double Impact.
Like Double Impact, yeah, that one was good. Or last year we did Memphis Belle, which is one of my favorite movies, wow. And I know it was like a first time watch for a couple of the guys, so that was fun. Sharing that with other folks. But I think one of the best parts of doing this is that like, we all kind of, however many movies come out each year, there's definitely going to be some that I just don't see because, well, I just, I wasn't the intended audience back in the day, and they end up being fantastic movies. And, like Thelma and Louise, love that movie. Mm-hmm. And then and I think it was at the end of last year, we did the Christian Slater, the Pump Up the Volume.
Wow.
And I really hadn't even like, I don't even think I like had heard of that movie. And, that was really cool, to see that. So it's fun going back and just, checking all the movies that I hadn't seen. And I'm not a big horror guy by any stretch of the imagination, but doing this show has forced me to go check those out and find the ones that I like. And I know we're talking about movies from this year, and I'm kind of jumping all over it, but like Jacob's Ladder.
I was going to say, like you and I both, we had not seen Jacob's Ladder. And I remember when we got to that episode and you and I both were like, man, that movie blew my mind.
Yeah. That was
good stuff.
That was really good. And it's introduced me into things that it's like, now I'm like a huge advocate for, like Army of Darkness, which
Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. Which we haven't done Army of Darkness, but we did Evil Dead 2.
Okay.
A couple of years ago. And I was like, guys, I don't know. I'm not a horror guy. I don't know what to think. And then it was through the discussion, like, oh, I like this movie a lot more. And then that's when they were like, you should watch Army of Darkness. Because sometimes that's the gateway that everybody watches. And then
to get you into the others. Yep.
They get me into the others. And then I watched Army of Darkness. And it was like, I called everybody that I knew. I'm like, have you seen Army of Darkness? And so it's been
next year. It's coming up next year.
Yeah. And so it's been really fun to go back and, like I said, relive and do the nostalgia thing and share these movies, but then also see a bunch of stuff that I'd never really seen before and really enjoyed. So yeah, some of the highlights from this year, it's been that, Thelma and Louise, and then right towards the end of last year, Pump Up the Volume and Jacob's Ladder, and then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh man.
What a great
classic. The first one, one is like so good.
Yes.
But we had from last year into this year, we had, was it a 3-month period where over the course of, it was November, December, and January.
Yeah.
Covered something related to Ninja Turtles. So November, we covered the Coming Out of Their Shells tour from 1990.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It was its own adventure.
Yeah. That one's. Okay.
Yeah.
And December we covered the first Ninja Turtles movie, and then January we covered Ninja Turtles 2. So it was like a 3-month Ninja Turtle marathon.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's funny. I'm not a big comic book guy. Love the comic book movies, but I never, except for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I bought all those comics. And it was like, after doing the show, I'm like, I pulled out all those old comics and I went online and bought like the reissues. And that's just been fun. Backdraft is another one I should mention. We did Backdraft this year, and that was another great. Yeah, it is.
So so to wrap up our little spiel on our podcast, we actually it's going to be, I think, Terminator 2 when we get to that one later this year. That is our 365th episode. So we've officially reached the point where if somebody wants to listen to our podcast every day for a year, they could absolutely listen to our podcast every day I don't know who would want to. But
there's a Surgeon General's warning out for like listening to us, that it causes weird reactions in lab rats to listen to us every day. But you've got that option if that's how you choose to live your life.
True. We've got, and the one thing, I mentioned, because it kind of ties into your theme with Christmas. We've also got a Patreon channel that we do with some exclusive episodes. And nice. One of those Patreon exclusives that we've got is we're going to do It's a Wonderful Life in December. Right, because that one's hitting its 85th.
Something like that.
85th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And we've got one of the people that we know from another podcast. We were talking with him and he's like, yeah, I've never seen it. I'm like, wait, what? You've never seen It's a Wonderful Life? All right. I know exactly what we're doing in December of this year. So we're going to get him on. We've told him, don't watch it until it gets to about the time we're going to record in December. Cause we want a fresh perspective on, somebody who's never seen this movie, sitting down with a bunch of guys for whom it's, between me and I think one of the other hosts, it's like one of our, if we had to list our top 5 or top 10 movies of all time, It's a Wonderful Life would probably be in there. So kind of looking forward to that one too. That'll be a fun one around Christmas time. But yeah, I mean, the ways you can find our show, we're 30podcast.com is our website. That's probably the easiest way to go find everything, because then you can get to our Twitter and our episodes and all the other stuff from there. The Superman podcast is at Superman PFK on Twitter. And that one's Podcast Full of Kryptonite. So yeah, I just in this hour or so that we've been talking with you, I think we're kind of like very like-minded with a lot of other people. We have a lot of fun. And, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts where they'd get real down on movies and they'd get like real negative on movies. And I was like, you know what? I want to have a podcast where it's positive. Like, I just want to have fun talking about movies. Cause if you're just going to gripe about movies all the time, then what's the point? So I'd rather have a forum where we could just sit around and talk like friends. And if other people want to come talk with us or listen to us, then we're just gonna have some fun. And if for some reason it ever stops being fun, then we won't do it anymore.
Right on. And I completely understand where you're coming from, because that's how I am too. I try my best not to be too down on the material that I cover, because who wants to listen to that? It's so much more fun when it's when you enjoy it. So
unless it's Howard the Duck. If somebody wants to hear an episode where we complained about a movie the entire time, we actually had one of our co-hosts walked out of the recording because he got
wow.
Yeah.
That may be one of the only ones.
What did they say? I think Paul Scheer was the one that said it's he's talking about Howard the Duck. He says definitive proof that George Lucas had a raging cocaine habit in the 80s.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Oh man.
But so definitely check them out. Podcast full of kryptonite, and for sure definitely check out 30 something podcast.
But thank you so much for having us on your show. Just we were super excited, especially the moment I mentioned to the guys on our show, and I was like, Pat, you want to go talk Die Hard for a little bit?
Yeah. I think my reaction.
Tell me when.
I think my reaction was, hang on one second. Let me just get a fresh bottle of water. I'll be down in a second. Well, no. It'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate y'all coming. It was, I had a blast doing it, just talking, all the fun stuff. And guys, definitely go check out 30 something podcast. Okay. It's amazing. And you have a whole year's worth if you want to listen to one every day. So that's always a plus.
Yeah. And just echo what John said. Thank you so much for having us on. And this was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for coming. And on that note, I'm going to end it by saying, if this is their idea of Christmas, I gotta be here for New Year's. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're feeling like Bonnie Bedelia punching William Atherton, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to vote. Later, dudes.
It's Christmas!
Hello, this is Adam from Merry Britsmas. I am a Christmas fanatic from the UK who thinks that the world needs to know more about the traditions, telly and music that helps make a British Christmas really festive. I look at everything from mince pies to Boxing Day to Wham to Slade to the Royal Family to Doctor Who. If you want to find out more about a British Christmas, or you are British and want a hit of nostalgia, check me out at Merry Britsmas.
And happy blooming Christmas to you and all.